Hey guys, welcome back to Fantasy Tipped. I'm Julian, and I'm going to be talking about the fantasy overview of the Edmonton Oilers for the upcoming season. Before we get into anything, guys, please drop a like, subscribe, hit that notification bell, leave a comment, let me know how I can improve these videos. Alright, let's get to it. Let's start with Edmonton's lines. On that top line, it should be Ryan Nugent-Hopkins, McDavid, and Puljujarvi. On that second line, I anticipate Dominic Cahoon, Leon Draisaitl, and Kailer Yamamoto. On that third line, it should be Tyler Ennis, Turris, and James Neal. On their power play, we'll have Nugent-Hopkins, McDavid, Tyson Barrie, Leon Draisaitl, and either Dominic Cahoon or James Neal, I think. On that second power play, we'll see Jesse Puljujarvi, Kyle Turris, Yamamoto, Ethan Bear, and Evan Bouchard. You'll notice that Darnell Nurse is not there because I see him having a little bit more of a defensive role this year. So let's jump right into our do not draft list, guys. And as you saw on the power play lines, Darnell Nurse was not there. I think they transitioned Darnell Nurse to a little bit more of a defensive role this year. I think he'll get a lot more defensive zone starts than offensive zone starts because I anticipate Evan Bouchard making the team this year. And they've also got Ethan Bear and Tyson Barrie now for the offensive stuff for the team. So I don't anticipate him getting as much of an offensive role. And last year he only had 33 points anyway, which isn't that spectacular. So I'd rather stay away from Nurse just in case what I'm saying is true and he does end up getting a little bit more of a defensive role this year. Next on this list, guys, is James Neal, and he had an okay season last year with 31 points, but his shooting percentage was almost 17%. And guys, I think we all know that that's an unsustainable shooting percentage, considering the league average is 9.5. So by that logic, James Neal's numbers should go down a lot, and he won't really be fantasy viable. On top of that, I don't see him skating on the top power play that entire season. He might get some time on it, but I don't really see it happening the entire season. The other issue is he'll be skating on that third line. It's not a terrible third line. I like Turris, and Ennis is pretty decent, but, you know, when your top two lines have McDavid and Draisaitl, your third line's not going to get as much ice time as you'd like. Next on this list, guys, is Tyler Ennis. And the Oilers made some really nice signings over the offseason in Turris, in Cahoon, in Puljujarvi. So that kind of pushed Ennis down the depth chart. Now last year he actually had a good amount of time playing with McDavid. I can't see that happening again this year, so I don't see Ennis really having any real fantasy value this year. Last on the do not draft list, guys, it's Mike Smith. And yeah, he split the games last year 50-50 with Koskinen, but let's be real, Koskinen was the much better goalie last year. Koskinen went through a couple of slumps, which could happen again, and Mike Smith might get a few starts. But let's be real, Mike Smith is getting older, and they're going to have to bank on Koskinen. And looking at the new schedules that just came out, there's not as many back-to-backs as we thought there was going to be, so there might not be as many games where the other goalie has to start. I think Koskinen should still get as many games started as last year, hopefully more, because Mike Smith ended up getting about half of them. So I still think that Koskinen is going to get the vast majority of the starts because he is the better goaltender. Alright guys, so let's jump right into our draft list, and first and second are McDavid and Draisaitl. So guys, let's jump right into our draft list. First and second on these lists. So guys, let's jump right in. Alright, so now let's jump right in. Alright, so you've seen my do not draft list. Let's jump right into my draft list. So first and second on the list are McDavid and Draisaitl. And do I have to tell you anything about these guys? They're two of the greatest players in the entire league. And last year, Draisaitl was the only player in the entire league to get over 100 points, and he hit 110. That should tell you how good these guys are. If you're lucky enough to draft top 5, you are very lucky to get either of these guys on your team. Next on this list, guys, is Ryan Nugent-Hopkins, and he had a really good season last year, scoring 61 points in 65 games. So he was at a point per game pace, and he was playing alongside Leon Draisaitl. Now, I don't necessarily see him playing alongside Draisaitl again, just because I think Cahoon will get that spot. But I think he plays alongside McDavid, which is even better for his numbers. So I think Ryan Nugent-Hopkins can easily have another season where he's at a point per game average. Next on this list is Tyson Barrie, and I know a lot of you guys might be a bit skeptical with him because there was a good part of the season in Toronto last year where he kind of sucked. But that was not really his fault, it was the way they were using him. They got Barrie to be your number one power play guy. That's the reason you have Barrie on your team. That's what he's good at. He's good at manning the power play. Toronto wasn't doing that. He was on their second power play, which barely played. They had Morgan Riley on the top power play. Once the coach changed, once they fired Babcock, Barrie was promoted to that top power play and he started killing it. He started doing so well. He ended up getting a total of 39 points in 70 games, and the vast majority of those were after Babcock was fired. So I think that Barrie has an absolutely explosive season playing on Edmonton's top power play. Especially now that Clefbaum is injured, there's 0% chance that anybody else plays on that top power play besides Tyson Barrie. I really like drafting him at rank 81. So next on this list, guys, ranked 111 on Yahoo's draft list is Kailer Yamamoto. Last year, he came into the league towards the end of the season and he looked spectacular playing alongside Leon Draisaitl, ended up with 26 points in 27 games. The only thing that's a little bit worrisome is his shooting percentage was 25%, which is unheard of and obviously unsustainable. So his goals total might go down a little bit, right? He might not be a point per game guy like he was last season, but I think that he's still going to be pretty damn good because he's going to be playing with Leon Draisaitl. Like, how could you not have pretty decent numbers at least playing with a guy as good as Leon Draisaitl? He might be ranked a tad bit high, but I don't mind drafting him at 111. Next on this draft list, currently ranked at 171, is Mikko Koskinen. And like I said before when I was talking about Mike Smith, Koskinen should be the bona fide number one goalie on this team. And looking at the new divisions, the Oilers are arguably the best team in the division. So Koskinen could seriously get a lot of wins this year. He can really pile them up, and I think he's a real steal at 171. Next on this list, guys, is Jesse Puljujarvi, currently ranked at 231. He was drafted 4th overall in 2016. And he didn't really work out during his first stint with the Oilers, but I think they tried to play him a little bit too early. They should have let him play in the AHL. He wasn't ready for the NHL. Now that he's played a couple seasons in Europe, his numbers looked pretty good in Europe, so I think he'll be a lot better. Now, would I draft Puljujarvi? Right now I'm saying yes, because it depends where he ends up falling in the lineup. If they want to give this guy a real chance to shine and to show everybody what he's got, they'll play him in the top 2 lines. And that means to me, I think he's going to end up playing with McDavid and Ryan Nugent-Hopkins. If he can shine there within the first couple weeks, he'll probably be locked in that spot for the rest of the season and could be a real steal. Next on my draft list, guys, is my must draft of the video, and that's Dominik Kahun. Currently ranked at 597 on Yahoo's draft list, which I think must be a mistake because Dominik Kahun has the potential to really smash this year. Let me tell you why. Dominik Kahun should play on the wing with Leon Draisaitl this year. He previously played with Leon Draisaitl when he was a teenager in Germany. They played 30 games together in their last season together. Guess how many points they got? 398 combined points through 30 games. How ridiculous is that? They did super well together and they have some real chemistry. If they can find that again playing in the NHL, Kahun might be the steal of the draft. He might be the biggest steal in the entire NHL this season. And odds are no one will have drafted him. You can pick him with your last pick because he's ranked so freaking low, which I still think is a mistake. So last but not least on my draft list is Ethan Bear. And last year he had 21 points in 71 games, which isn't that great, but it was his rookie season. This year, I think he has a little bit more of an offensive role, and I think he might have a chance to hit what would normally be about 35 points in the course of a regular season. That's about 24 points in this shortened season, and that's really the bare minimum amount of points that you want any player to get this season. Any less than that and they weren't worth your draft price. Alright guys, that's it for the draft list. Now let's jump into the keep your eye out for list. And on this list, guys, I only have one player in this video, and that's Evan Bouchard. Now, I want to take a look at training camps and see if he makes the team. If he does, I think he has a decent chance of cracking that second Edmonton power play, which means he'll be getting some offensive opportunities. I also think he'll be getting a lot of offensive zone starts because they want him to get some confidence and they want him to get some points. Now, I'm not overly high on him because he doesn't really have the possibility to do super well because Tyson Barrie's locked into that top power play spot and he's not going to budge. But I think Bouchard has the opportunity to really show what he's made of this year and crack the lineup and, maybe put up a few points. Maybe he can even hit that 24-point mark. We don't know. But we'll have to look at and see how he looks in training camp and in the first few games of the season to judge just how good he's going to be this year. Alright, that's it guys. You've reached the end of the YouTube video. I really appreciate you watching all the way through. Please leave a like, subscribe, hit that notification bell, and leave a comment. Let me know how I can improve these videos. Until next time, guys, stay safe, stay healthy, and I'll catch you in the next episode of Fantasy Tipped.